initialize our new thing. So now this is the second video on this GUI introduction. So now, when the user enters in a title and author copies and he clicks book 2, it should overwrite whatever book 2 is and then put those values in. And book 3, same thing. But now, or we could make it more complicated, and if I click book 1, if I left title blank but changed the author, would then change the author. Or if I changed copies but left the other 2 blank, it would work with that. But for now, we're just going to be simple, and we're just going to say when you click on it, it will override it. So let's take a look at this. Step 1, book, new book, blah, blah, blah. One thing you need to do is I actually need to create an action listener for that event, because now every GUI element can listen. You work with elements, any GUI elements, you have to create what's called action listeners to it. So in other words, it's listening to an event of the user. So the user will go there and cause an event. Now, when you right-click on your GUI elements in NetBeans, which is AIDE, you have Eclipse, you have different, you have JGrasp, there's a few that just work with Java, there's a lot that work with other ones as well. You also get Android Studio, which also can work with and you get a whole bunch of different ones. Now what you'll notice is in here, if I go to down to where it says events, this is the events that can be called. Now you'll notice there's a few things. It can have a key listener, it can have a mouse listener, so when the mouse hovers over it even, you can get it to do something. But in this case, we want the default, which is action perform. Now the idea of action performed is it's any form of physical action. Now an action is when it's an execute action. An execute action will be if you click on it, or if you press spacebar on it, or if you cause that button to be invoked through keyboard shortcuts, via a touchscreen tap, via a mouse click, whatever action causes that element to be activated. That's what the action performed element is. So action performed, it will then generate inside, it'll generate an action performed. At some stage, if you guys get into more advanced GUI, you will have to add your own action elements to your individual classes and encode them to listen to it. But that's outside of school syllabus. It's not part of school syllabus, listening to action elements or doing crazy things like that. For you guys can go right-click action perform, sweet. When the user clicks it, it'll activate. Right. Now, this action has been activated. It said, okay, I have clicked on this button. What do we want to do? I never want you guys to code in here. I want you to code in, sorry, I actually shouldn't call it book 1, I'll call book 1 clicked. I normally call buttons but, it's funny. So private void button 1 clicked, and I create my method up here. The reason why you don't code in book. The reason why you don't code it in here, you guys take a look here. Java.awt.event.actionEvent.evt is the parameter which was sent to this method that's down here. Now I can take a look at that event and I can analyze that event. So in other words, if I do it on a mouse clicked or an action event, I could take a look at the user right clicked on this event. I could go event.getSource or get whatever, and it will tell me how the user interacted with this element, and I could potentially do different things depending on what event activated it. But now, for most of your guys programming through school, if you just want to be able to pass and do well, or do well, you don't need to use that at all. Only if you're wanting to try funky stuff does this matter.
Funky stuff.
If you want funky stuff, you have to work with this event. If you don't want funky stuff, you don't have to work with that event. So now, that's why, and you create a separate method. So if I need to call this action again, I could. I don't have to recreate that element to be able to say, I don't have to create that parameter, so I can just call it again. But in this case, what we're wanting to do is that we know the author, the title, is going to be from, now this is why it's important you name stuff. Because technically, do I know if JText field 1 or JText field 2 is the title? Probably JText field 1, but I don't know this. So I right click on it, I change name, I call it TXT title, and you should name everything that you've got. And you'll notice that I've kept to a naming convention when I work with GUI, to the first 3 letters being what type of object it is. So for example, for the the buttons, I would often change the variable names to but book 1, but book 2, but book 3. And the same thing with, you don't have to rename the label, but normally if you are going to rename the label, I'd call it LBL title. And in this case, this one is TXT author. So I've named everything, and now I can get the various different values through. Now, I know my TXT. Now, we had started to learn, in our book class, we learned that fields that were private required getters and setters. So if I want to change this object's text value, or what it is showing, guess what? Dot set. So if I want to get what the user entered, I'd use dot get. And you'll see there I've got a get text. So as like with the text field at the top there, dot set text will change what is displayed, dot get text will change what has been, will retrieve what has been inputted. And you'll see on the visual here, it shows us get text returns a string, semicolon. Now, same thing, string author is equal to txt author dot get text. And what am I using? What is my shortcut to open up this menu? Control space bar. It's very important, guys. If I did this, get text, would it work? No. So if you use control space bar, make sure you use the right casing and make sure you use the correct spelling, all of that. Okay, guys, let me just quickly finish this. It won't be long. Now, what you'll see, the last thing I want to do is I would want a number of copies. I'm going to talk about how to get the copies from there at another stage. But for now, I could then go book 1 is equal to new book, and I can send through the title, the author, and the copies. Which means now, when I press play, oh sorry, I'd want to then update my display, all, and now, when I run it, you'll see that if I now go, so let me show you properly. Wizard's first rule by J.R. Tolkien. What we replace that book by? What book should we replace? Guys, stay seated until I finish. What book should I replace this with?
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter, and author is
J.K. Rowling. My friend.
now. And I said this wouldn't matter because I actually haven't coded this button yet, but I'll show you how to do that next time. When I click book 1, it'll overwrite book 1 with those values. I know it's very difficult to see because the writing's quite small here, but yes, it overwrote those values. Okay, guys, that's the end of this step. Tomorrow on Monday, I'll go through the rest of this, and then we'll go into the more detail.